30 years after removal of the old Orange Line, a section of Jamaica Plain and Roxbury is seeing a long-awaited surge in development. But there's a downside for many local residents who struggle with the cost of housing, and there's also a struggle for local business people and artists. To tell us about the changes are the Small Business Program Director for the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation, Carlos Espinoza-Toro, and from City Life Vida Urbana, the community organizer for the JP Rocks area, Alex Ponte-Capellan. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to start with Carlos Espinoza-Toro. There were two kinds of businesses that I think this is mainly about. One of them is in the heart of Eggleston Square, a restaurant opened by Dominican immigrants, 30 years ago. Talk about this, El Embajador.
Of course, and I just want to make sure the location of El Embajador is a little bit south of Green Street. And El Embajador is a business who's been in Jamaica Plain for almost 25 years. The owners are two Dominican immigrants, Ramona Alvarez and Juan Tejeda, and recently they've been negotiating with their landlord, the new landlord, which is City Realty. The negotiations have been going on for roughly more than a year, and I've been helping them through a grant to be able to afford legal services with a lawyer called Gabriela Mendoza. And throughout these negotiations, nothing had been put on paper. Just recently, a few months ago, they were handed notice of evictions after this long process. So we were taken aback about this, and that's why we wanted to team up together with City Life Vida Urbana and my colleague Alex and other folks as well, in order to be able to put some pressure and bring them back to the negotiation table.
Alex, you have a family that runs a restaurant for 30 years. I'm sure it means a lot to them, but you were at an eat-in at this restaurant that took place not too long ago. So what does this restaurant mean to the neighborhood?
Well, the restaurant is just a cornerstone of the neighborhood. I grew up in Boston. I've been there when I was a little kid, so I just know that this is like a part of JP. And for immigrants like my parents, we understand that our businesses and where we are together, it really like builds a network for us. And that's how we survive, really. And the way I got involved with El Embajador was because I'm already organizing in the area, helping residents stay in their homes. And there's a really bad actor in that area, in my opinion, bad actor, City Realty. And they're evicting tenants, residential tenants. And then I found out about, they're also evicting local businesses like El Embajador and the one right next door. So I felt impelled to join with them.
Now, I imagine City Realty might characterize this differently. That they might see it as basically, we're investing, we're fixing things up, and we have to get a return in that. And maybe it's not much about evicting people so much as that they just can't pay the cost of that.
I think that once you're putting profit over people, then you just don't care about the outcomes of families. And I think if they're just willing to take less profit, then they can find a way to keep people that are most vulnerable in the area. Because when you think about racism and structural racism, it happens just in the regular business practices of businesses. They may not intentionally want to do it, but the effects just happen to fall on poor people of color. And if we say we're a sanctuary city, if we say that we want to protect these folks, then we have to think outside of the law and what the law says is right or wrong, and really try to protect these folks.
Carlos, the other issue here is that some businesses can relocate. You can sell pizza almost anywhere, but talk about a business like this restaurant, or talk about the artists on Brookside Ave. What are their options, if not in this neighborhood?
Of course, I'll mention again the option that El Embajador may have. They've been with a business model, which is bringing folks to have a nice meal in a very traditional setting, doing that for about 25 years. The options for them is really to continue doing the business for a few years and then pass it on to their next generation. There's already a couple of chefs who would like to continue an updated business model on that. And that's the reason why we work together with lawyer Gabriela Mendoza to ask them to renegotiate a relocation in an area that was closed there. because if they move somewhere, they will lose clientele, and in order for them to recover that clientele, they will have to lose more than 50% of their revenue, and they will not make it. So one of the most important options is for them to remain in that area, and hopefully with that landlord, and that's what is at stake on the negotiation. I also want to point out another business which is adjacent to El Embajador, which is the Chain Auto Service. For instance, they've chosen to actually move out of the area because they had already been thinking about that. Now, in that case, this individual is more of a word of mouth to mouth clientele, and therefore we're able to find a place for them somewhere else. But still, we would like for the landlord to be able to respect the time that they need to do so, and in addition to that, to be able to help them with the cost and the investment that they might have put on the building. So that's a very important aspect in order for them to have options to navigate a relocation or navigate staying in the area.
Coming back to Alex, of course, another factor here is the cost of the new housing that's currently being developed in this JP Rocks area. I know people have pushed for more affordability, they've gotten some more, but overall, how does this affect what's going on with the businesses?
Well, we know that the more development there is in the area, the higher the rents become around that development. So it's definitely affecting businesses. I know of a few businesses that, just have to move out because they can't afford the rents anymore. And the development is really, in my opinion, pushing those rents going up. And when we think about local businesses, especially businesses of color, where you are really plays a big factor, especially if it's connected to this network I was saying about. So I know JP Rocks, that area, was like one of the first places where Dominicans kind of congregated and created this network for themselves and really brought that character to Jamaica Plain. And on one hand, you'll think about the wealth disparity in Boston. So the typical white family in Boston makes, their wealth is over $200,000. The typical Dominican family is $0. And that was a report by the Federal Reserve. And when we're displacing local businesses from their networks, it's only exacerbating that wealth gap. So I feel like the solution would be to implement policies that protect small businesses. And there's several examples in different cities. In San Diego, there's a legacy business. So if a business has been in the area for an X amount of time, they give grants to those businesses so they can, stay afloat. And also in New York, they're trying to follow this Small Business Job Survival Act, which basically gives more protections for small businesses. And I think that's the way to go. If Boston wants to protect the folks that are most vulnerable, then we need to start looking at policy that will protect these folks. I know that the JP Rocks plan has tons of language that says that, we want to protect small businesses. We want to, their slogan is development without displacement. And yet, in that same report, they state that they know of 10 businesses in the planning area that are at risk of displacement in 2016 alone. And what's being done?
Carlos, I should finally ask you if there's any other business out there, especially in this area, that needs some help. Maybe this NDC can be of assistance. Is there a way they can check that out?
Of course, if there's any other business in the area of Eggleston Square, on the entire Jamaica Plain or around the city of Boston, that needs specifically any kind of help on affordable legal services, they can call JPNDC, they can call myself. They can also go to jpndc.org for the website, and we'll be able to set them up and connect them with the legal resources that they need.
And of course, Alex, you have a City Life Vida Urbana site too, right?
Yes, it's clvu.org.
Right. Thank you both very much for being with us. Alex Ponte-Capellan and Carlos Espinoza-Toro.